Hi, this is Chris, KD9CLH. Today's project is to build an UnUn, that is an unbalanced feed to an unbalanced feed, or an unbalanced feed to an unbalanced load. Its design is to provide like an isolation between, for our purposes, our transceiver and a wire antenna. This particular project is being done so that I can match what will be a random wire end fed, which will be put up on a mast that I am going to be purchasing very soon. For the purposes of this project, I have decided to use this design. Interesting thing about this particular design, this is going to be a 9-to-1 UnUn. Crazy thing is, when you look at all of the stuff on the internet, you find very, very few drawings that will actually depict a 9-to-1 UnUn. For example, if you look at the windings on this drawing, you'll find that it is an 8-to-1, and we can count them. Every time a wire goes through a core of a toroid is considered a turn. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. It's an 8-turn UnUn. However, whenever you look at the finished product, it does indeed show a 9-to-1 UnUn. I find this very interesting, and I think what happens is that the drawing is just done for reference purposes. I've seen them 10-to-1, I've seen them 8-to-1, I've seen them 11-to-1, and in some cases those designs are actually quite valid, which is one of the things that I'm going to be investigating. Now, one of the interesting things you'll find in this video is that this is being done by a complete neophyte. You watch some of the guys that wind these things and it looks very, very routine to them. This one is not going to be so much. It's going to be, you're going to see a guy who does not know what he's doing here. I've never built one before, and we'll see how it goes. Now, I have chosen for materials, if you'll bear with me here while I put all this kind of back together, because I'm using some of this stuff for my props here. And what we have here are a few toroids. What I'll do is I'll put them here. There are 4 of them here. I purchased 4 of them. These are, actually I purchased 5 of them. These are T240-43 toroids. It's a ferrite mix. One that I found to be quite favorable in everything I've seen for use in 9-to-1 UnUns. What you'll find here is that these are not coated like some of them that you see. In fact, they're pretty slippery. They're very smooth, and while they are of a reasonable size, get 2 of my fingers through here, they should be easy to work with, but we're going to find that out. These are, like I said, T240-43 toroids. 43 represents the iron mix. 2.4 inch outside diameter, 1.4 inch inside diameter, about a ½ an inch thick. And this one happens to be manufactured by Ferrite. And I found the 5-pack on Amazon for a decent price. The reason I'm buying so many of these things is that my intention is to not only build this particular UnUn today, but I also intend to build a 1-to-1 common mode rejecting isolation transformer for at the rig. Now, when you put together a 9-to-1 for an end-fed wire, you can use that in a number of ways. What you can do is you can mount the thing up at the top of the mast in which case you really would have to put some radials down to make it effective. But this one's going to go at the end, or at the bottom of the tower of the mast, and it'll be attached to a 450 ohm ladder line, which will run up the mast, and it will be then connected to the antenna. So it'll be matching 450 ohm unbalanced line, or balanced line, excuse me, to a 50 ohm coax. Now, some of the tips I picked up over time on these things is that I mentioned earlier that these things are pretty slick. And one of the tips that I did receive was to, in some of the videos I've seen, is to wrap it in friction tape. Gives it some tackiness, easier to work with. And you just use the same kind of old friction tape that you would use to wrap your hockey stick handle with when you were a kid, or tennis racket handle, or whatever you want to have a tacky grip on, baseball bat, you name it. I've also decided to take the hard way out here as far as wire material. Now, I have seen that what you can use in some of the videos, you can go ahead and use stranded wire. But the more you look into it, they say, yeah, you can use stranded wire, but you probably shouldn't. Now, I select these materials because my intention is to put that long wire up to be able to utilize 160 meters. And to do that, what you probably find you have to do, if you'll excuse the focus here, is that you have to use thicker materials, or you should probably use thicker materials. This is 400. This is a number 14 Romex cable, solid wire. They recommend the use of solid wire because it'll help you give you some broadband. And I use the heavier gauge stuff because it will help me with that lower frequency. The same applies to using the larger diameter core, I am led to understand. Whether that's true or not, we'll find out. I've also, what you see here is kind of put a little bit of tape around here to kind of hold this trifilar stretch of wire together while I actually do the winding. So there are the materials. And in the next section of this video, what you'll actually see is a higher wire act as KD9CLH actually tries to wind this beast. So bear with me.